The talk you're about to hear is by Zen teacher Sensei Amala Wrightson.
Today is the 11th of December 2018, and we're going to take up a koan tonight. It's number 29 in the Blue Cliff record, the Hekigan Roku, and it's called Daisu. It goes along with everything else. And just to start off, let me read it. A monk asked Daisu, when the conflagration at the end of the kalpa sweeps through and the great cosmos is destroyed, I wonder, is this one destroyed or not? Daisu said, it will be destroyed. The monk asked, will it be gone with everything else? Daisu replied, it will be gone with everything else. I think this particular koan is a particularly relevant one for us today as a species, we could say, because we're now not mere victims of mass destruction or possible victims, but actually the agents of it. And two reports have come out recently which really emphasize the increasing urgency of our situation in regard to this potential for destruction that we humans now are responsible for. In October, an IPCC report, an Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, put out a report called the 1.5 degrees Celsius report, and they had been commissioned to look into how we were doing with the commitment that was made at the Paris climate change talks to try to keep global warming to under 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's average temperature rise across the planet. And we're already at 1 degree Celsius rise. And the news is not particularly good. We're really not currently on track to meet that target. And what the panel said was, and this has been quite widely quoted, that to keep to this level requires rapid, far-reaching, and unprecedented changes in all aspects of society. And they give us just 12 years to reduce CO2 emissions by 45% from 2010 levels. They go into what 1.5 degrees warming means, and it's pretty extreme across a whole range of indicators. But 2 degrees seems a tiny bit more, only 0.5%, but in many areas, a 2 degree warming produces double the ill effects of a 1.5 degree warming. It depends a little bit on what you're measuring. And there are a whole range of areas which can be looked at in terms of the negative changes that will occur there. When we hear this, it can be quite daunting to look at what needs to be done, and also especially when you see the range of forces that are going in the opposite direction. In the USA, of course, Brazil, it's pretty discouraging. But there would be real upsides to it as well if we were to really rise to the occasion as a human race, really. There's a little article that in the website of the World Resources Institute, where it summarises the findings of the panel, and it concludes the short article by saying, there's no sugarcoating it. Keeping warming to 1.5% will be hard. 1.5 degrees will be hard, really hard. But the IPCC report also makes it clear that the world has the scientific understanding, the technological capacity, and the financial means to tackle climate change. Now what we need is the political will to precipitate the unprecedented, concerted actions necessary to stabilise temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius. There are substantial economic and developmental benefits from bold climate action, and even more importantly, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees is an imperative. Falling short would lock in climate impact so catastrophic our world would be unrecognisable. Governments, businesses and others have the clarity they need. Now is time for them to step up to the challenge. I heard somebody, and I don't know who this was, a while ago saying that contrasting the predicament we're in with human-generated climate change with what if an asteroid was heading towards Earth? There wouldn't be anything we could do about it. But since it is human-generated, we humans can deconstruct those forces which are generating this predicament. So the big question is whether we will or not. The other report that came out more recently, just in November, is called the Living Planet Report for 2018. And just to read a little bit, this report has been produced by the World Wildlife Fund, and it's like a stock take of the health of the biosphere, really, looking at many studies to get an overview. And in one article about this report from, I think it's from The Guardian, it says, humanity has wiped out 60% of mammals, birds, fish and reptiles since 1970, leading the world's foremost experts to warn that the annihilation of wildlife is now an emergency that threatens civilization. The new estimate of the massacre of wildlife is made in a major report produced by the World Wildlife Fund and involving 59 scientists from across the globe. It finds that the vast and growing consumption of food and resources by the global population is destroying the web of life, billions of years in the making, upon which human society ultimately depends for clean air, water, and everything else. We are sleepwalking towards the edge of a cliff, said Mike Barrett, Executive Director of Science and Conservation at WWF. If there was a 60% decline in the human population, that would be the equivalent to emptying North America, South America, Africa, Europe, China, and Oceania. That's the scale of what we have done. This is far more than just being about losing the wonders of nature, desperately sad though that is, he said. This is now actually jeopardizing the future of people. Nature is not a nice to have, it is our life support system. Kind of a bit of a human-centric view, but one that is needed to get across the gravity of what is going on. "We're rapidly running out of time," said Professor Johan Rockström, a global sustainability expert at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany. "Only by addressing both ecosystems and climate do we stand a chance of safeguarding a stable planet for humanity's future on Earth." So seeing these two reports together really got the sense of how we're getting to coming to the whole problem is coming to head, becoming more extreme, and the window for making changes is getting narrower and narrower. And there are so many statistics and so much information on this, and examples. I don't want to overwhelm people, but just a couple of points to just get a sense of this. People may have seen articles about what's been called the insect apocalypse, or sometimes referred to as Insectageddon. And because it wasn't measured, we didn't know about it, but now there has been research that has started to look at just the reduction in the populations of species. And among insects, this is very extreme. In Germany, where they've been measuring for longer, they discovered that there was a decrease of 87% by weight of insects in 27 years, of flying insects. They go into the disappearance of fish and birds of different kinds, which is probably due to the decrease in the populations of insects. And for instance, among fish, because there are fewer mayflies, or among birds because of specifically insect-eating birds. So a big reduction in the populations of partridges, 50% drop in nightingale populations, 80% drop in turtle doves. And I couldn't help but being struck hearing the mention of these particular birds, thinking of the role that these species play in our culture. You can think of nursery rhymes and songs and images in which partridges and nightingales and turtle doves appear. And when we look at this, we can see that it's very much the loss of these animals is a human loss. It's not like these are just service providers for human civilization or or continuance, but that when we destroy these populations, we are destroying a part of our souls, really. So we've been in we've been aware of this period of mass extinction that we're a part of for quite some time. And so it's not new, but it's getting more extreme and more urgent. Here's one figure that I found staggering when I read it, was that now 96% of the biomass of the planet consists of humans and our livestock. And only 4% of the biomass is now wild animals. Extraordinary figure. So this crisis of human-generated annihilation is coming to a head. the two aspects to it, just the sheer numbers of us now and the need to provide food and shelter for those growing numbers. I think we're up to I think it's 7.6 billion human beings now. So there's just that, the sheer numbers, and then there's just the huge mismatch that exists between our technological power and our, you could say, our collective spiritual maturity. So in the light of those points, we'll turn now to the koan. And I'll be drawing some material from a talk and an article that comes from a few years ago on this same koan, kind of updating it. So again, I'll just read the exchange here. A monk asked Dasui, when the conflagration at the end of the kalpa sweeps through and the great cosmos is destroyed, I wonder, is this one destroyed or not? Dasui said, it will be destroyed. The monk asked, will it be gone with everything else? Dasui replied, it will be gone with everything else. Now this master, Dasui in Chinese, or Daisu in Japanese, Daisu Hoshin, Dasui Farjun, Chinese. His dates are 878 to 963, and he was a disciple of Da'an, in Japanese, Tai-an, who was a Dharma brother of the great Guishan, Isan. Dasui got his name from the mountain where he taught in Sichuan province. So anyhow, in this koan, the monk comes and asks Dasui about the conflagration at the end of the kalpa, when the whole cosmos is destroyed. And he asks, will this one be destroyed or not? There's a little bit of explanation here. A kalpa is an eon, or the period between the creation of a universe and the recreation of another universe. So it's an extremely long period of time, and it also expresses the idea that comes from Buddhist cosmology of cyclical nature of existence, that existence consists of formation and destruction in cycles. And in Buddhism, a kalpa, this incredibly long period of time, is divided into 4 phases. Formation, where the universe comes into existence, then abiding, where it endures for a certain length of time, destruction, where it all collapses, and then final phase of emptiness, and then the whole process starts again. And our own universe is roughly 13.2 billion years old. This formulation of creation and destruction is loosely tied to one of the models that scientists give of the universe, which is of massive expansion and contraction. So a big bang followed eventually by a big crunch, and then the whole thing starting over again. So this monk he's probably read in the sutras about the end of the kalpa, the end of the universe, when everything is said to be consumed by a great fire. And this has raised doubts and fears in him, in his mind. Of course, this myth of creation and destruction presents death on a cosmic scale. Perhaps when we think about our own death, we can sometimes find some consolation in the sense of we know that we leave behind a legacy. There's some sense of continuity in that, of the family, or of our good works, our achievements, doing good in the world, and these continuing after we die. But if you look at the annihilation of the universe, then there doesn't seem to be any room for that. So this monk, in asking this question, he's looking for some kind of reassurance. He says, is this one destroyed or not? And he seems to be referring here to something more than just his body-mind. This one is one of the ways that the masters will talk about our Buddha nature. So he's asking, will Buddha nature be destroyed by this great conflagration? And Daisu says, it will be destroyed. And the monk asks again, will it be gone with everything else? And Daisu says, it will be gone with everything else. What's he saying here? What's behind his saying this? Well, great teachers always respond to questions in a way that relates directly to the mind state of the questioner. So our monk here he's looking for some kind of certainty. Please, you could imagine him saying, tell me something will survive. Something will still be. It's a little bit like the koan mu. In that koan, the monk asks Master Zhao Zhou, does a dog have the Buddha nature or not? And Zhao Zhou says, mu. Of course, mu means has not. And the teaching around Buddha nature in the Nirvana Sutra is that everything has the Buddha nature. So the dilemma here is, well, if everything has the Buddha nature, why does Zhao Zhou say mu, which means has not? What's behind his statement? In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha says, is and is not are the twin barbs on which all humanity is impaled. Zhao Zhou's answer lobs the ball back into the court of the student. The student has to find out for herself or himself what Zhao Zhou is saying when he says mu. And it's the same here with Daisu. He takes everything away from the student in order to lead the student to look into his own mind Again, the sutras say that Buddha nature is unborn and undying. How can Dasui then say that it's destroyed if it's unborn and it's undying? Buddha nature goes along with everything else as he has it here, because you can't separate Buddha nature out from what is destroyed. Elsewhere, it's in one of the koans in the Mumon koan, Think Neither Good Nor Evil, Master Mumon says, you describe it in vain, you picture it to no avail. You can never praise it fully. Stop all your groping and manoeuvring. There is nowhere to hide your true self. When the universe is annihilated, it remains indestructible. So in this verse, we're getting the other side of the coin. The monk asking Dasui about the end of the world, he wants there to be some thing that will survive when everything else is destroyed. And Dasui pushes him beyond concepts about is or is not, destroyed or not destroyed. We want to have some kind of certainty, some sense of is or is not, out of a desire to have some place of security. But it's that very wanting to protect ourselves, wanting to find some secure place, that is a cause of our suffering. We suffer and we make others suffer because we cling to a notion of a self that needs to armour itself against the other, that needs to acquire this or that. And of course, in the core of this kernel of self are our strongly held idea that we're separate. In the Visuddhimagga, the Buddha says, suffering exists, but no sufferer is found. Karma is, but no one who acts. Nirvana is, but not anyone who enters it. The path is, but no traveller is to be seen. It's very hard for us to accept this. This kind of groundlessness. There's a kind of coda to this story that doesn't appear in the koan, but which illuminates it. After having this conversation with Dasui, the monk, we're told, still didn't accept his answer, and so he went to visit another Zen master, probably hoping that this other master would give him a different answer, and would say that Dasui had got it wrong. So when he got to this other master, he related the whole story, and after listening, this second master lit a stick of incense and turned in the direction of Dasui's temple and offered it, praising Dasui. And he then urged the monk to go back and make his apologies to Daisu for not valuing this fine teaching he'd given. And so the monk dutifully followed the second master's instructions and returned to Daisu's monastery. And it may have been a long distance between these two, because by the time he got back, he found that Daisu had died. So he couldn't make his apologies and felt even more perplexed. And so he then made the journey back to the second master again. Perhaps he planned to ask him what he meant when he said that Daisu had given such an exceptional answer. But when he reached back to the second monk's place, he found that that master had died as well. So in the second part of the story, this whole issue of impermanence and destruction is brought down into the personal realm. In the first part, the monk asks his cosmic question about the destruction of the universe. But here he's faced with something much more intimate, close to home, you could say. The death of his teachers. It turns into a kind of parable here of missed opportunities. The monk had the chance to learn from these two masters, to open his eyes, but he wasn't ready to hear the teaching. He was still caught up in is and is not. He didn't realize that in order to apprehend the unborn and undying nature of his own true self, he had to let go of those notions. So for us as 21st century human beings, this koan has new resonances for us. It's not a new problem, but it's taking a particularly dramatic form for us. You could say that the prospect of kind of mass annihilation has hung over us since at least the Second World War and the death camps that were constructed with sort of industrial scale efficiency, but perhaps even since World War One, when so many people were killed in such a short space of time, and then following the death camps, the release of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were and are vivid reminders of forces of annihilation and how they can be released. But besides these dramatic and overt ways in which humans can destroy, we are now also becoming slightly more aware of the more gradual ways in which destruction is happening. In The Fate of the Earth, Jonathan Schneller explores our human ability to destroy and how it's changed things. And he's talking about destruction of the environment, I think particularly nuclear destruction, but this is just one of the ways in which we are able to destroy. He says, such imponderables as the sum of human life, the integrity of the terrestrial creation, and the meaning of time, of history, and of the development of life on earth, which were once left to contemplation and spiritual understanding, are now at stake in the political realm and demand a political response from every person. As political actors, we must, like contemplatives before us, delve to the bottom of the world, and Atlas-like, we must take the world on our shoulders. If we can look at it from this point of view and see that this crisis that we're in is also an opportunity, a chance for us to rise up to a new level spiritually, to bring greater awareness to our lives. It's like we have to be both contemplatives and political actors. How can we respond to this extremity, this slippery slope down which we are going, without really delving into our minds and plumbing our depths, seeing the nature of our aggression, our greed, our fears, our separation from our world and from people. And not only just having philosophical insight, but putting it into practice in the ways we interact with other people, and how we earn a living, what we eat, what we do with our leisure time. Japanese Soto master commenting on this koan, his name was Tenkei Denson, he says, the underlying meaning is that the fire that consumes the universe at the end of the eon is already upon you all. So everyone should urgently make a thorough investigation. If you waste time hanging around, you will lose your life. If you waste your time hanging around, you will lose your life. It's talking, of course, here about really waking up. There's an Italian poet and social reformer, I'm not sure if he's still alive, Daniel Dolci, who was once asked to comment on the apocalyptic kind of world that we live in. And he said something that's very much in harmony with Tenkei and his comment. He said, it has been astutely observed that apocalypse contains the sense of unveiling or revelation as well as that of ending. Yet what should we think of this complex of intuitions and nightmares, of desires, dreams, and catastrophic fears? I believe that for a person who is aware, every day is its own apocalypse. Every day unveils itself. Every day goes into dust. I find one remark of Jung's very telling. Each one of us can discover and diffuse our most secret traumas in order to set in motion an alternative way of life. really is the case that each of us is a kind of, you can see ourselves as a kind of human bomb that we have to diffuse. And perhaps we can see the rise of the suicide bomber, not so much as an aberration, but as an expression of our collective human karma. In family systems theory, the suicide bomber would probably be called the identified patient. This is the family member who most obviously shows the pathology of the system. One particular member, everything will seem reasonably normal in a family, but then there'll be one very sick member of the family who's kind of expressing the way in which that system isn't working. If we can really make efforts to see into our particular pathologies at this moment in time as human beings, the flavour and the shape of the dukkha that we are co-creating, then healing can happen. And another one of the positive things about truly seeing and waking up to our destructive potential is that it brings with it an awareness that what we do matters. When what we do sends species into extinction or causes an ecosystem to collapse or a traditional culture to be destroyed, then it goes along with them. We really do lose our life. But if we can learn to take off our armor and diffuse our traumas, then there is the chance that we can come back into harmony with the rest of nature. Instead of letting our world overheat, we may be able to burn up our attachments, throw them on the pyre. So we're called upon to really look into our own hearts, try and see where we're attached, and see the structures and systems we've created as human beings that are toxic. We're not inherently toxic as a species, but we have created systems and structures which are. The fire that consumes the universe, the end of the eon, was already upon us all. If we can give ourselves fully to whatever we do, then our sense of a small self can disappear in that burning. It's really, this is our refuge. If we can live out of this total involvement. Let's finish up with a couple of quotes. The first one is from Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, people usually consider walking on water or in thin air a miracle. But I think the real miracle is not to walk either on water or in thin air, but to walk on earth. Every day we are engaged in a miracle which we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black, curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All is a miracle. We're really in the predicament that we are now in because we don't fully understand this. We don't see it completely. That our walking on this earth, breathing air, seeing the sky, feeling the breeze, all of these things really are miraculous. They're a great mystery. And another quote, this one from Bhikkhu Bodhi. Action requires more than personal decisions to consume less and be more mindful about one's use of energy. If we are going to stem climate change, what is needed is a fierce compassion ready to stand up to lies and expose the truth. What is needed is courageous action that can awaken minds and change hearts, that can startle people out of their complacency. And this is courageous action to be effective has to be married with as much self-awareness, as much wisdom as we can muster. One of the teachings, classical teachings of Buddhism, is called the Four Proper Exertions. And here's the way that Master Sheng Yen translates these. He says, number one, to help others to avoid non-virtuous acts that they have not yet performed. To persuade others to cease performing non-virtuous acts. 3, encourage others to engage in wholesome acts not yet performed. 4, urge others to nurture and expand those positive endeavours that they are already performing. Of course, we can't do any of these unless we're doing this for ourselves as well. And this is where our training comes in, our mind training. To train ourselves to be able to recognize what is virtuous and what is non-virtuous, to be able to really discern what is wholesome and unwholesome. And then not only do those things for ourselves, but encourage others to do them. And this relates to how we're relating to our world, to the natural world. If we don't do this as best we can, then one day we'll find that we're alone. There's this move to call the present era that we're in the Anthropocene, since we've started kind of a new geological era by the power of humans to mark even our geological record because of our actions. But somebody else suggested another way of labeling this new era, which was the eremocene, using the Greek word for being alone. Because if this does unfold in the direction it's headed right now, then then we will find ourselves, if we survive, in an impoverished world and deeply lonely. Well, we'll stop here and recite the 4 vows. And next year, the first Teisho, we'll have a look in more detail at some of the ways in which we can respond to this crisis, this demand to wake up. All beings without number, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates beyond measure, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. All beings without number, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates beyond measure, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. All beings without number, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates beyond measure, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.
The teaching you have received is offered freely. If you would like to make a donation to support the continuation of this podcast service or learn more about practice opportunities at the Auckland Zen Centre, please visit www.aucklandzen.org.nz.